looking at the UFC St. Petersburg's main event here. Obviously, we've got Alexey Oleinik taking on Alistair Overeem this coming weekend in Russia. What are your thoughts on this show? A little bit of a down show. It's being called UFC Fight Night 149. It's also being called UFC on ESPN plus 7 on ESPN plus 7, et cetera, et cetera. Overeem, Oleinik, not exactly a battle of number one contenders, but they're both top 10, I'd figure.
Yeah, what are the odds on this currently, Miguel?
Right now, Overeem is going to be favored. Let me just make sure I pull up the right number on here. But Overeem coming in with the UFC on ESPN undercard odds, main card odds here. Let me pull it up for you and give you the exact figures so that we're not all messed up here. And we've got Alistair minus 250, Oleinik plus 210.
Yeah, I think that those are good odds. The only thing with Overeem is he's pushing 40 years old. And when you talk about Overeem, you're talking about a inconsistent, up and down, controversy-riddled career of a man who, started his career at light heavyweight and blew up to heavyweight, and was known as a Reuter for years. With you could just tell the difference in his physical stature, just becoming massive. But then he goes on to becoming just dominated outside the UFC for quite a many years, and ended up becoming the Strikeforce champion. Comes into the UFC and runs through Brock Lesnar, and then he's had some up and down since then. The thing with Overeem is how many times has he been knocked out? I mean, I swear, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not even just trying to be funny. I can't think of a fighter I've seen get knocked out more times than I have Alistair Overeem. I mean, I can think of several times I've seen Alistair Overeem knocked unconscious. And,
he's starting to remind people of David Price. David Price, a British boxer who's been knocked out like 4 or 5 times, and left twitching knockouts. So ugly knockouts on top of everything else too. Oleinik, 41, a veteran of like almost 80 fights. Once upon a time, back in 2006, I match-made a fight for him. So I've worked with Oleinik before, and I knew he was tough there. At that point, he wasn't fighting at his heavyweight division, and he took a loss in that fight. I matched him up with Chael Sonnen at that point. So a fight of 2 UFC veterans there. Oleinik, it doesn't surprise me that, 13 years later, he's still in the game. It doesn't surprise me that 13 years later, he's a guy with 70 fights. That was the kind of mindset that he had when he showed up there. That was obviously early in his MMA career. At least it was early in his international MMA career. He showed up every bit looking like he knew what he was doing in terms of competing and things like that. A Sambo specialist, has gotten some submission finishes in the UFC as well, if I'm not mistaken, since we've been watching him. In this particular fight, though, I think you're looking at Overeem has been to a higher level, been at a higher level, operated at a higher level for longer. You're talking about a long history and a lot of fights. That does say something. But you're talking about Overeem. You talked a little bit about his history with fighting, the likes of, Brock Lesnar and that sort of stuff. If I'm not mistaken, Overeem is the guy that back in the old days of Pride took out Chuck Liddell, didn't he?
He didn't say no. That was Rampage Jackson took him out.
Okay.
Yeah, he got knocked out by Chuck Liddell. Nasty.
There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you for patching up my beat up memory there. But the point there is that's operating at a high level too. You know what I mean? With Pride and stuff like that, that's a higher level than Oleinik has been to throughout his whole career for that long. So that's mainly Overeem's advantage. The fact that it's in Russia also gets a little bit of a wipeout because Overeem throughout his whole career, him being Dutch, has always had an association and help from the Russian Red Devils, including training at times and things. It's not outside the realm of possibility that him and Oleinik have rolled around before.
Yeah, and this isn't the type of fight that I usually see I'm not as worried about Alistair Overeem as I am against a heavy-handed striker. And I think that Oleinik is going to be a little too slow. Alistair, the thing is, I mean, as many times he's been knocked out, he doesn't look like he wants to fade or nothing. He's still the same fighter. I mean, he's still really good offensively. He's got, I mean, Alistair Overeem might be the most technically skilled heavyweight, one of the most technically skilled heavyweights we've ever seen. It's just he's very, very, very chinny. I mean, I you talked about his days in Pride. I mean, when I think back at him at light heavyweight, I think of him getting knocked cold by not only Chuck Liddell but Shogun twice, Ricardo Arona. I remember knocked him out. I remember him getting knocked out in K1 by Sergey Karatanov. And since he's been in the UFC, he's been knocked out by Bigfoot Silva, Travis Brown, Ben Rothwell, Stipe, Ngannou, and Curtis Blades. And the Ngannou knockout alone looked like it killed him. And so I mean, but yet he also has two wins over Fabricio Verdum. He knocked out Marquette. He knocked out Junior Dos Santos. He beat Roy Nelson. He knocked out Alistair over Andrei Arlovsky. He beat Frank Mir. He beat Brock Lesnar. I mean, he was the champion in Strikeforce. So, and he was also a K1 heavyweight champion. I mean, he was a great, great kickboxer. And he's got some submission skills. So, I mean, he's definitely, I mean, a great fighter. He's just definitely with the chin issues, but I don't think that'll be a factor here with Oleinik. I think he's coming off a win. He just got a win over really a nobody in his last fight, somebody that we never even heard of. Overeem did. Before that, he was knocked out by Curtis Blades and Ngannou. And Oleinik is coming in on this fight on a 2-fight win streak over Mark Hunt and Junior Albini, and he lost to Curtis Blades. So both their last defeat was against Curtis Blades. As you mentioned, you got a 38-year-old, you got a 41-year-old. They're at the tail end of their career. I think that Oleinik, I will say this, I think his style and at this point in his career is better than what it is for his age, than what Overeem's is. But I see this as being a fight that Overeem should shine in and should still be able to be at his tail end of his career and pull together another win, most likely.